Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, coaches around the world, welcome to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. It's your boy, the Road Dog, with none other than the man, the myth, the underwater legend, Dr. Karl Bryan. There you go, Shoots.
Not the doctor. Shoots. How's it going, buddy? What's happening? Speaking of water, Shoots, I got a lot of rain coming down here, bud.
Is that right? We had the first rain in about 4 months here, so we're good. We're good. Hey, listen, in the pre-show, we just talked to somebody in regards to he had thrown out a price, which was kind of interesting, as it was the same sort of price as to what the guy made last year for his own sort of personal take-home. So, I wanted to save this for the podcast, because what I find interesting there is we're all pretty much predetermined in our price. So my first question is that a mistake when we're so firm in a solid price that we have? Because I know you like to scale up. Or would you, if that is in fact your price and you don't want to undervalue sort of, yourself, would you then have downsell options? Like, how would you handle that?
Yeah. Nice question. Agreed. So on maybe just some context in the pre-show, somebody sat down with a business. Basically, they netted $36,000 last year, and then his pricing was $3,000 per month, which is $36,000 per year. And just if you look at it objectively, you could probably see how the guy took a big gulp and just couldn't get his head around the $36,000. No matter how amazing it felt and how badly he wanted to do it. That could just be difficult. And it would be different if you were highly, highly seasoned. But if we were just getting going in coaching, this might not be the right pricing, right? Because to be clear, Road Dog, we talked about this in different podcasts back in the day, but I remember sitting with somebody and they made like $6,000 the previous year, with their business, like gross $6,000 is not profit. And I sold them, like a high-end coaching program, right? So I don't want to say that it can't be done, that it hasn't been done, and that you can't do it, because that would be incorrect. But that being said, just objectively looking at it, no doubt you can see the challenge. So the solution, and there are a few, like, why not go, if you want to be $36,000, why not be willing to work for 1,000 month two, 2,000 month, 1,000 month one, 2,000 month two, and then go to 3,000 ongoing. And by the way, I do 997, 1997, and 2997. Again, without question, when you put a 7 on the end of your pricing, you will increase conversions. But like that would be a better option. And I would imagine that, if you really think about it, and we've talked about this many a times in the past, but you just got a $36,000 client for a credit card that went through for $997. And that can be a very powerful and difficult, that can be a difficult proposition to say no to, again, especially when they sat down and they saw the numbers and the frame of money at a discount. So that's the way I do it, Road Dog. So what I just did is I maintained my price at $36,000, which is where I want to be, but I allowed my business owner to not gulp quite as deeply, to say, okay, well, look, we're going to get started at $1,000. I'm going to move to 2,000. And by the way, if anything's going wrong in those first couple months and we don't knock it out of the park and we take a little bit longer to get traction, I am more than happy to drag out the lower pricing for a couple months to make sure we get cranking. But if we come out of the starting blocks, rubber meets the road, and you start killing it, and all these initiatives and partnerships and profitability starts to happen, then I'm going to maintain, but the deal that we just signed is the deal that we're going to go with. But just understand that I am here to coach you. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to mentor you. I am going to be, it would be, silly of me to not be willing to work with you as we get going. So That's what I say, Shoots. And then the other one, Andrew mentioned, doing a contingency. Again, you could lower your fee, like keep it, let's just say instead of doing $3,000, you do it at $1,497. And then you take a 2.5, a contingency on the back end. Don't do that on profit. You do that on gross, by the way, because profit can be manipulated 9 ways to Sunday, so you'll never get it. That's not the goal. So be a little cautious with that. But you could do it in that manner. So that's my answer, Road Dog. And then as far as the downsell that you mentioned, look, definitely, like as an example, group coaching. We provide group coaching software to our guys. You could do group coaching. Let's say you're $3,000 a month. You could provide for $997 a group coaching program where you got 20 folks, and effectively you make the majority of that in a 1 hour time frame. Do the math, and that looks a lot like $20,000. That would make a lot of sense in your hour. And then, by the way, the magic of group coaching, we talked about this a few times in the last few podcasts, but I'll drop it again. Group coaching, one of the magical little pieces of that is the network effect of you becoming more attractive and more magnetic and more appealing as a one-to-one option. So therefore, you'll be able to get that $3,000 with a text message as opposed to even having to get on the phone with the guy. You have the people applying to basically get at you as opposed to, you working pretty hard to get into their office. And we both played both sides, like, that game that you got to play. And as you become more preeminent and you become better at this and more sought after, and you do more speaking gigs and you get interviewed more times and you got more results and more testimonials and more people locally talking about what a great job you did with them, it's going to become easier and easier and easier to get those higher fees quicker. So again, Road Dog, really importantly, be an unbelievable business coach, be an unbelievable business consultant, really shift the people that you're working with, and good things always happen. So that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
Okay, so I'm going to throw a random question at you before I get into the actual questions of the podcast.
Sure,
just because I'm curious, because I literally just saw this on Facebook. I was like, man, that's a good question.
Yeah. Nice.
What niche would you never work with and why?
Say that again?
What niche would you never work with and why?
Okay. The easiest, it depends on my level of experience, but the easiest person to sell is a salesperson, right? So if your solution is to go after accountants, they would be the category, they'd be the opposite of a salesperson. And then therefore they're harder to get on the phone. They're more than happy to set an appointment and not show up. They're never short of something to do, right? Just the nature of, you know what I mean? Just the nature of being an accountant. If you know one, just ask them, or her. So I would caution myself to go with people so a guy who owns an engineering firm, don't need to meet him. He's highly analytical and he's not going to make hard decisions quickly as a general rule. And rules don't always stick, and they won't in that one. But generally, I would try to go to people. I want somebody, look, there's somebody who's optimistic and somebody who is pessimistic. The person with optimism makes more money. So now on the flip side of that, they also spend more money and lose more money, and they'll, chase that golden goose and end up losing it. So just because you make more doesn't mean that you keep more. So don't think what I just said was wealth. What I did talk about was income. So I would be cautious to go after people who are too analytical and didn't make hard decisions quickly, because they can just be challenging in a coaching dynamic. Okay, so I want to answer this differently. So now you would probably, after what I just said, you'd go, oh, well, realtors would be a home run, because you're very seldom a good realtor who's not a hot sales guy and wearing a flashy suit, right? Or outfit or whatever. The problem with that is that they're too retail, they're too available, and they're getting bothered by everybody. So what I would encourage folks to be thinking about, and remember, Road Dog, what I started with is it depends on my level, like where am I at in my career and how good am I at all of these things, right? If I'm really good at herding up accountants and I've got some preeminence and I've got an in with an association and, trade show and I got floor time, might be different. So realtor, think of realtor as a ground floor business, and then there's the second floor and then the third floor. Again, we went over this not long ago, but like instead of going to the realtor, or maybe let's use like everybody wants to go to chiropractors and dentists, right? So instead of going to the dentist, walk into the dentist's office, look around and see just the different things that they're buying, and then go to those businesses. But you won't find those businesses on level one, right? Like what do they say? Real estate. Is that it? Location. That's what I'm trying to say. It's the opposite. They don't need to be on ground, like, cause like people, you know what I mean? Like they're up on level 2, level 3. Hopefully anybody listening would be able to understand what I mean there. Those aren't the sexy businesses that everybody's going after. And therefore you got significantly less competition. They love to get interviewed. They love to, understand how to double their profits, etc. So don't know if that's, the best answer, but that's what I would say. These are some of the things that I'm thinking about before I go and choose who I'm going after. What do you think?
Beauty. All right. All right. So multitasking, bud. I'm about as good at multitasking as you are starting up your computer. Listen, it's always a trick. Like, what's my password again? And then it's like you enter it, then you got to reset it. It's like you can't use the same password. Hey, listen, we talk a lot about movies and stuff, right? And last week, I think it was last week, we talk about movies and lessons and everything else. You always talk about the movie Founder. Like, it's kind of embarrassing, actually, how much you talk about this movie. Can you enlighten the rest of us? Like, I realize it's a pretty good movie, and it's Michael Keaton, isn't it? Like, again, you can't go wrong with that man. But can you kind of enlighten us as to why do you watch that so many times, and what are the primary lessons that you've gotten out of it?
Okay. I have watched an embarrassingly large amount. Okay, again, I think it's a good movie. It entertains me. It's the movie that I go to fall asleep. And again, we've said that before. But look, there was an inflection point. If you watch these movies, what did we talk about last time? Like The Social Network. But like Ray Kroc was trying to, he was going after people with money, right? So like investors. And what he was finding is that they weren't following the rules, and they were putting, lettuce on the burgers and selling tacos and chicken. And at the end of the day, remember when McDonald's started, it was a burger, it was a soda, and it was fries. And like, that's all you got, right? They kept it really tight and simple, and they were complicating it. Oh, and by the way, they took they wanted to get rid of the riffraff. They wanted families as an ideal client, not the riffraff. So we got rid of the jukebox, and you'll see that right there in the movie. But lesson, husband-wife team. Wife out the front, husband out the back. And again, not looking for investors. That's, that was like, all these were the guys, when you look at the most successful first franchises in McDonald's, you're going to see a lot of husband-wife team that worked as a team, right? There was also a point in the movie where they, what was it like? There's a guy, what's his name? Harry, can't remember his name, but basically he said, hang on a second. Hey, Ray Kroc, I'm a fan of your restaurant, McDonald's. He says, if you're not making money hand over fist or something, incredibly wrong, let's chat. And he says, okay, well, come down and look at my financial statements. He did exactly that. And he says, look, the problem is really straightforward. You're in the wrong bit. You don't know what business you're in. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, you're in the real estate business, not the burger business. You can't get rich making a quarter of a cent off of a, 25-cent burger. He goes, you're in the real estate business. So Ray Kroc changed everything, and that's how we ended up getting control of McDonald's. But again, so if I own lesson there maybe, if your client is a daycare, my question is, they've been established, they've 3, 5, 7 years into it, they're committed, they're not going anywhere, things are growing. Well, go buy a piece of real estate, set the business up. And then ultimately what you do is you would get the business going, own the real estate, sell the business, continue on the real estate, and you will have rent money, mailbox money for the rest of your life, right? So again, he didn't know what business he was in. If you've got a client that can translate into real estate, this is something that I would absolutely be looking at. And then if they did it 3 times in 3 locations that again are a drive away from one another, don't do it in 3 different cities. Huge mistake people do when they grow. Again, you know what I mean? Like it's like the Subway deal. Like I've always said, you know, you want to own 3 of them, but you want them to be within a drive. So you got one lot of staff, one lot of inventory, etc. So think about the same strategy with the daycare, and they own 3. They ultimately own 3 pieces of property. They sell those daycares off, and they've got mailbox money for the rest of their life. And remember, you know, the rule of money or the rule of wealth, the old money equals never sell. Right? So when should they sell those daycares, or when should they sell the land? The answer is never. When should they sell the daycares? Debatably never also, but that can be a real tough business to run. It normally has a shelf life. So you'd want to bring somebody else in to run it, because looking after kids and changing diapers is a reasonable task for anyone, right? Anyway, so there's that. I don't know, Road Dog. You know, you're not too late. He was 52 when he started the thing, right? Colonel Sanders was 62. So that's one. If you want it, look, it was ultimately an idea that he came up with, but then you're going to see that he was going to the bank and they're like, yeah, we remember you had, you know, this idea. We remember you had this idea. If you want to have a great idea, the trick is to have lots of ideas, right? And then on the flip side of that, make sure though, rather than looking for ideas, you got to solve problems. Ultimately, what they did is they solved, the fast food. You can see it right there. There was people on roller skates, coming out, wrong order, wrong this, taking lots of time. And ultimately, the problem that they solved is they didn't make great food. They still don't make great food. They don't pretend like they make great food. Again, the stuff is horrific for you. What's that show? Super Size Me, right? You can literally die from eating the food. Kill your own customers. Think about that. But they ultimately solved the problem of fast food. And then how did they do it? Tight menu, right? Like again, they didn't put lettuce on the burgers. What's the problem with lettuce? It's perishable. That's why they didn't have lettuce, right? Again, what's wrong with owning a restaurant? Food, right? Like one of your biggest expenses is the food that you're throwing out the back. So that the tight menu allowed them to do that. Different topic, again, if you have a client who is a restaurant, you go in and their menu is more than 3 pages. First thing you do is tighten their menu, because there's no way they can keep that food fresh, right? Like I don't need to be there to know that they're keeping a lot of the food frozen. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to have this 5-page menu. And by the way, the best restaurants in the world, you ever been to a really, 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 really high-end restaurant? Think about how tight the menu is. It's very small, very small. So again, but what is the local restaurant doing? The exact opposite. So shoots, I think that, ultimately they made a scalable model too, but not scale like, okay, people mess this one up. There's growth and then there's scale. I go through Facebook again, I scale this, scale that. Growth is when you grow and your expenses come with you. Scale is when you grow and the expenses fundamentally stay the same. So McDonald's is not a scalable model, but the franchising of it is, right? So just understanding the business model that you're running. I don't know, Road Dog, I think that's it. And the systems, obviously it's systematized in Jesus, but understand that they're hiring 16-year-olds. You can do that. We talked about either that last week or the week before. Systems set you free. And I don't believe that to be true. I believe that systems stifle creativity. But again, there's a nuance there, right? Like, who are you hiring? I'm not looking for the 16-year-old's creativity. I'm looking for him to follow the roadmap. But if you want to build a business with professionals, 50 years old with master's degrees, you need to give them freedom or they're about to leave. So, and Road Dog, maybe just like business is war is something I've often said. And that doesn't mean that it's you win, I lose, or I lose, you win. It's just that to not see it as that, war, ultimately it's the ultimate, that's the ultimate competition. When you are predictable in war, you die. So I encourage people to be thinking outside the box. But the movie ends with a quote, and it's, your competitor was drowning. I stick a hose in their mouth and turn on the water. And then he says, can you say the same? And he's speaking to the McDonald's brothers, right? And like, they realized in that moment that this guy was ruthless, the same way that when people play against Jordan, they realize that he is just ruthless. He is not going to let up. He's going to keep coming at you. If you played sport, you probably know a guy or a gal like that. And it's just really, really hard to play against them. That's the McDonald brothers said uncle, and they were just at that age and that scale, that time of their life, and the money that they were able to get set them up for life and didn't have to worry about it. So, Ray Kroc didn't have that bone. He was coming at you, and that was bloody that. So Road Dogg, maybe, I don't know, there you go, bud. My fascination with the movie Founder, which I think is unreal. Over the weekend, actually, I watched a movie about Spotify. No, it's not a movie. It's actually a series. Didn't get all the way through it, but got through a number of them, and that's a ripper too. But anyways, let's keep moving. There you go, Shoots. That's my answer. How do you think?
Where's that one? Is it on Netflix?
Yeah, Netflix. Yeah, it's a rip. Yeah.
It's funny you say the going to war. Well, you're going to war for that business, with that business, against the 80% failure rate, wouldn't you say? Like,
there you go. Perfect. A perfect war to rage. There you go. 100%. Going to your competitors, like one of the things we do, right? Like people in our space, they charge 50, 80, grand up front, and like the truth is that business coaching can be difficult, right? You know what I mean? Like not everybody this isn't McDonald's by any stretch of the imagination. You just be lying to say anything similar. So, like going and charging those types of fees and then not being successful, what ends up happening, and, a lot of people, what happens when you light 80 grand on fire and you can't afford to light 80 grand on fire? You sell a house, or you sell a car, you sell a house, you sell the holiday home, you look at your wife and you look at your kids in the eye, and it's very, very challenging. And you end up in bed in the fetal position with a little thing called depression for a period of time. Right. So, you know what I mean? So that's a war that, internally we rage, it's like, bring it. And that's, like having an enemy, look, Road, what am I trying to say? Isolating and, seeing an enemy can be very, very powerful for the right individual. That's not for everybody. Somebody with a significantly more feminine approach might struggle with that one. But as the alpha males in the room and listening, find an enemy. It's not that it won't work for the feminine either. It will absolutely. Sometimes they can be 10 times more ruthless than we ever could. But there you go. That's, find an enemy and fight. Actually, let me just say, I was talking to Pat earlier today. One of the things I said, we were just talking about something, and I'm like, Pat, what just happened? I said, believe this is Mike Tyson, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? So you got to be agile, man. You got to be agile. There you go.
Love it. Hey, listen, I feel like we're on this conversation of war, moving forward, all this sort of stuff. If you were to do some sort of an exercise, or I don't know what else, like some sort of strategy, I guess exercise is the right word today.
Yeah.
That to propel, I guess, not just your coaching, but you forward, right? What would you do? What does that look like?
What do I do? So that's me, or is that with the business owner?
Well, we could do both, but I would say, do you want to start with self and then go outward?
Yeah.
Or
okay. Yeah. Okay. If I were to do you know what I do? Best year exercise. And by the way, get your client to do this as well. I did a really, really high-end personal development training once. It was a number of years ago, but it was like, to say that it's intense. I mean, like you do your own funeral and it's like full on. I actually did it with a very famous person from the internet marketing / business coaching world that we all would have heard of. okay, forget that. Who cares? Bottom line, it was a pretty cool group and a pretty cool, bunch of people to be in there with. Hollywood and everything else. Like it was deep, man, and it was crazy. So what they would do is they'd get you to do. That was kind of lame. I wasn't trying to name drop or whatever, but anyways, so I couldn't believe the amount of writing we did. Right, so like you're writing letters to self. I think it's an unused exercise. So basically what I would do, I would challenge you, like just say road dog, right? Write a letter to yourself, but it's 1 year from today, right? 365 later. Write a letter, and it's like, this was the best year you ever had, business, personal, relationships, etc., financially. And write down what happened and what you did in order to achieve that. But like future pace it as though it already happened, and write a letter to yourself to say congratulations. I think that is a very, very powerful exercise. Writing your own eulogy is something else that might be a little morbid for some of our listeners, but I can tell you that can be very, very powerful. But bottom line, your best year exercise, write a letter to yourself with 2 thumbs up and 5 stars out of 5. And then just write down like what happened. And then not only the results, but the journey. Like how did you, like managing your emotions is something that I would include in that. I think that I don't know. I think that's a really powerful exercise. And Road Dog, what we've said in the past, and maybe what I should have said, but like write down 25 years from today, your goal, and then write down your goal 10 years ago from today, then write down your goal 5 years and go in this order. Don't start at the beginning and go out. Start at 25 years and come back. But 25 years, 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, and quarterly, and then monthly, and then your weekly, and then the daily outlook as to what you're going to accomplish in the game plan. And then looking at that, the goal is obviously to have all of them in stereo, like to rhyme, right? And to work synergistically and to coalesce. That is, we recommended that. I think that's the way, if you asked me this a year ago, that's the way I would have answered it. That's maybe the right answer versus the best year exercise. But you know what I'd be doing? I'd be doing both. Maybe, so now I'm thinking like your business, like so I'm going to give you an exercise for your business. I can't think of an exercise, but I would tell you that I would look at your first thing that I do when I'm talking to people, or certainly one of the first things in the way my wheels, the wheels in my brain would turn, is that I'm looking at your business model, right? Like, what's the business model that you're operating at, right? And again, is it old school and yesterday? Like, we talked about this again a while ago, but it's like, I got a buddy who owns 25 restaurants, thinks he's doing amazing and is doing amazing, right? But I'll tell you, 25 restaurants, and they don't all have the same name. It is not a franchise, right? So as a franchise, I would be, very different response. But I'm like, that, like, you're working real hard. You've got a lot of low end staff. You've got an insane amount of inventory. Like, it's just that's a hard business. And he does it well. So, he's looking at exiting for a pretty impressive multiple to do, but that's really, you know what I mean? Like, that's just a model in this day and age. I don't know that I'd be recommending it, right? And one of the things I said, like, I would rather, like, if you know how to run if you own 25 restaurants and you've run 25 restaurants, then you've potentially exited and looking to exit, you've forgotten more about the restaurant gig than Road Dog and I will ever know, right? Well, I would say, why don't you teach people how to start a restaurant? Right? Like, how many people are out there thinking right now, you know what? We're lacking sushi in this neighborhood. My wife and I are going to start it up. Well, they're looking for a little bit of guidance. That would be would I do that? I don't believe that the world needs another restaurant, by the way. So I don't know that that's what I would do. But if I went and owned a bunch of restaurants, I would do that times a million as my business model. I think of the location freedom that you could potentially have, and then scalable, right? Like, you could, again, scale. It would probably fall under growth a little more than it would scale, but you could absolutely grow it to an impressive level and do pretty well. And so I would do that. Or again, we talked about Tesla and Ford. Again, walk into a Tesla dealership. There's 5 cars, and it's downtown New York, downtown LA. downtown Toronto, downtown London, downtown Sydney, etc. Right? And then you go to a Ford dealership, and it's in the suburbs, and they have like acres and acres of land, right? Well, and hundreds and hundreds of vehicles, right? With knowing, I could go to my 9-year-old and describe these two business models, which I may or may not have done, the poor thing. But you know what I mean? Like, and she would be able to identify that one is, the horse and buggy whips, and one is new age, big time. I mean, I'd be looking at that. Or another example, but BlackBerry and iPhone. Remember, the iPhone didn't kill BlackBerry. The App Store killed BlackBerry. Again, talked about that in the past. Just, digest that, internalize that. Like, what does that mean? It wasn't the keyboard and whatnot. It was the App Store. That's the magic of both of them. There's Siegfried and Roy versus the Blue Man Group, right? Again, Siegfried and Roy made like, I don't even know, but big money. Let's just call it $100 million a year. I get no idea, but it was a big number, and they didn't have to think about money. They'd made so much, right? But they were living in Vegas, had to live in Vegas, and had to get on stage and wrestle tigers every night, like 7 days a week in Vegas. And couldn't, if they took a holiday, the world would know because the show wouldn't be going, right? Well, the Blue Man Group, they get a guy who's 5'6", a guy who's 5'8", a guy who's 5'10", a guy who's 6 foot, and they can, do whatever. They paint themselves blue, and they basically they were sitting on the couch, and they had shows running simultaneously around the world in different continents and different countries and different languages, and they were killing it, right? So again, which business model do you want? That's very similar to the Tesla and Ford, where, no doubt, I'm going Blue Man Group times a million, because you just need another guy that's 5'6", 5'8", 5'10". Hopefully that's self-explanatory, right? But like, that's the model that I'm going to. Look, the goal, Road Dog, right? Like, if I'm going to do an exercise, like what is it you're looking to achieve? And here is something that I said in Cancun multiple times at Business Coaching Mastery. We may have said last week, can't remember, but I think it's powerful and should be said maybe on every episode we ever do. The goal is to become something that's very, very rare, is two words coming together, and they are old and rich. Very seldom to meet an old guy or old gal that is rich. Bunch of reasons why. I'll let you decide, which ones, because, well, I'll tell you, because there's a whole bunch of ways to make a lot of money, but there's an infinite number of ways to lose it all in one shot, right? So be very, very careful. But old and rich, the two things I'd be trying to bring together. So if you're going to be thinking about your 20-year plan, the 25-year plan, and doing that exercise and writing a letter to yourself, I hope it's not, selling the real estate that you have. Remember, old money equals never sell. I want to retire with income, not net worth. That's what I said in Business Coaching Mastery, right? So rather than have 3 houses worth $1 million each, selling them, putting three schmil in my bank account, having to pay tax and a whole bunch of expenses on top of that, by the way. So I'm not going to net anywhere near 3 schmil. But rather than that, way better than that, what I want to do is I want to continue to own those 3 properties. For how long? Old money equals never sell. Answer is forever, right? Warren Buffett would be very proud, pat me on the head and said, well done. And say I charge $3,000 a month for the 3 properties, I've got $9,000 of income for how long? And the answer is forever. So I could live to be 120 years old, and I've still got, like the equivalent of, inflation. It's going to increase. I got the equivalent of $9,000 a month that anybody could live on very, very comfortably for the rest of my life. And I don't think, Road Dog, people are thinking like that. And I think that is a mistake, right? Like, again, entrepreneurs want to make it. Investors want to keep it. You want to put yourself in a position where you change. Not everybody's in the position to be an investor at this stage. But when I write a letter to myself and I think out 25 years, these are the types of things that are making, my game plan. So again, I want to retire with income, not net worth. I think that I would wonder, without me saying that, if that would have come into the 25-year plan. Often not. And again, exiting, like people want, like Road Dog, people, we know this, right? People start businesses and they want to exit. It's literally written into the original business plan. You see it on Shark Tank all the time, right? Their plan to exit. Like, it's just not a business that I'm going to invest in, right? Like, I'm going to own a business that's, favorable and exciting and entertaining that you want to continue to own forever, but you could sell in a heartbeat should you choose to. Like, that is the conversation, right? Like, do that as opposed to helping somebody exit. And by the way, some businesses are better to exit. At some stage, it makes sense to exit. Nuances to all this stuff, Road Dog, as you know, and everybody listening hopefully knows as well. But, these are higher level concepts, higher level thinking, in my opinion. We get dreams to pursue, not people to impress. Again, what did I just say? Manage your emotions. Why do people sell in downturn? They know they should. Don't sell, don't sell, don't sell, don't sell, don't sell. Gone, right? I'm not going to McDonald's. 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 Where do you end up? McDonald's, right? Anyway, so I don't know. Exercise, Road Dog, your best year. What did I just say? Your best year exercise. Write a letter to yourself 12 months from now. Kicking butt, 5 stars out of 5, and looking back at what you did in order to accomplish those unbelievable results. And then I think the 25-year, 10-year, all the way back to day goals. I think that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think? You like?
It's long. There's that. I was gonna just what came to mind there real quick, and because just trying to kind of bring this back down to the coaching level, and that is because you'd said something about the way my brain works, which is a pretty scary place in and of itself, but you're thinking 10 steps ahead. So where's your fine line with going in? Because again, you've got to speak to what their number one pressing issue is, and at the same time, not completely overwhelm them with all of the things that that they need to do. How do you manage that? Like, how do you go in and be like, okay, I know this is what needs to happen, but I know that this is their number one. That this is what they believe is their number one problem in their business.
Good. Okay, high five. Good point, by the way. So, look, okay, so you're a coach, the frame, you've got to get to 10 grand. I can assume anybody listening, if you get to 10 grand a month gross, okay, remember we have 80% margins. That's one of the reasons why you want to do what we do. Get to 10 grand a month recurring. And then at that stage, you're going to be able to, do you know what I mean? Now you change gears. You go from, like when you're driving a manual car, what do? You go from first to second, right? Second to third. So once you get the 10 grand a month recurring, and by the way, you get the 10 grand a month, don't get surprised when 2 people cancel and now you're back to 7 or whatever you're at, right? So manage your emotions. Remember, a good business coach does a great deal and feels outstanding. A great business coach does a great deal and feels nothing, right? That's manage those emotions. When you lose clients, Road Dog lose clients, I lose clients. I mean, it's a one, you know what I mean? It's just a Tony Robbins loses clients, right? It's all good. So 10 grand a month as a frame. Okay. So that's like the daily, weekly, monthly goal. And then at that stage, you change gears. So actually shout out to Jarvis. Hopefully we'll be, listening. He came to Business Coaching Mastery with us, spoke to him this week. Big fan of the podcast, Road Dog. But anyways, he just followed Live Event Mastery. Difference between him and somebody else is he actually bloody did it. He's got 9 clients at $1,500 a month. Reasonable. I don't know how new he is to business coaching, but he's new, right? Like new, not like 30 days new, but like new. And one of the things I said to him, because what's the thing, Road Dog, when we do a live event, how many do? We don't do 1, we don't do 2, we don't do 3, we do how many? 10, right?
I thought you were going to go with 100, but yes, 10.
Nice. I was thinking about it, by the way, just confuse you. But no, so you do 10. So what I said to Jarvis is like, he's crushing it. He's surpassing his, the financial goal that he probably set for himself at this point. He's a little bit past that. But one of the things I said is you set out to do 10 events. What I think you should do is you should continue to just do nothing apart from complete that goal and get those 10 clients, get those 10 events under you, because again, the 10 grand a month goal isn't the right one for him, right? So it's like, do those 10 live events. What we did is we went from an income goal to an activity goal. And by the way, the activity goal will normally, significantly more important than the income goal. But we also know that people have overheads and, They just, they need to get to a certain point, and that's fair enough. But that, that's what I would say is like, you're not going to be able to change gears until you get to 10 grand. But what will happen, Road Dog, is they will get to 10 grand and then they will not change gears, right? And that's why people don't take the next step from, entrepreneurs to investors, right? Because again, remember, entrepreneurs want to make it and then investors want to keep it. They don't change gears, right? And then they wonder why they have the birthday that rhymes with 60 and are sitting there going, hey, what the heck happened, right? Because again, they were too busy making it and not concentrating on keeping it. An example of that is selling the house for 400 grand instead of continuing to get $1,500 a month rent, right? And by the way, the reason somebody sells the house for 400 grand is to get the 400 grand, right? Remember, they want to make it. What's the mistake? Just go into the bank. If you've got, let's just say the house is worth 400 grand and you've got $150,000 of equity, you can go to the bank and get probably up to 80% of that. What do they say? 150, you get 80% of the equity without selling the house. So you still accomplish the goal of putting the money in your bank account to do what you need to do without selling the asset. And remember, old money equals never sell. A huge mistake that people make, right? But again, Road Dog, what I'm trying to say, they don't change gears, right? A real mentor can tell you what not to do. So we're not just talking to you guys as in the business coach listening. We're talking through you to the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, so that we can make sure that you're providing the guidance that, we would want you to impart. So, Road Dog, that's my answer, is that you set a milestone of, example, 10 events, 10 clients, 10 calls a day for 90 days. Like, you know what I mean? Like, set an income goal and then set an activity goal, and then do not deviate until you've seen those through. Like a buddy Jarvis, who's going to see through, I think he's at 6 or 7 events, and he's going to go through to 10. And just real quick, Road Dog, the magic that Jarvis is going to experience and you will experience if you do all 10 of your events is that he gets a compounding effect. He gets way better at his presentation. He gets way better at engagement. The quality of the clients start to step up. The joint ventures that show up step up. The opportunities start to step up. The guy who runs the chamber, the gal that does all the membership to the chamber, hears about this guy who's running these events and getting lots of positive feedback. She comes, you know what I mean? And then starts spreading the word for you. So you get this compounding effect. But importantly, when you're playing Monopoly properly, halfway through, you feel like you're losing. So what do you think is going to happen when you're at event 2, 3, 4, and 5? There's a really good chance you're going to feel like you're losing. But what's the reality is you're building up that compounding effect, and all of a sudden it's about to take shape. But a lot of folks quit the event before they can get the magical compounding effect. So what do you think, Road Dog? That's what I would do. I would set income goal and then agree that you're going to change gears, but not deviate until you get there, 10 grand a month. And then set an activity goal. Again, 10 calls, 10 calls is make 100 calls, by the way, right? But I give you 10 so that you'll actually do it. Because if I give you a goal of calling 100 people a day, it's just too exhausting to even think about, and we don't get your feet into the starting blocks and get you started. But right, like an activity goal, and then an income goal. What do you think? That help?
Yeah,
dummy it down a bit.
That's good. It's funny, of course, with your standard tagline. I was reminded that I meant to take a picture and send it to you the other day when I drove by the Kelowna Candle Company.
Nice. That's a coaching client. There's a coaching client, shoot. Dude, oh my God, you'll change their life.
Because again, I don't do anything local anymore, but I think I might just have to go in there and just make it happen. Like, hey, let me just
send it to the podcast. You're gonna love this. Boom. Oh my God.
All right, awesome. Bud, close us out. Give us one thing. What's the one thing from this week's podcast that they can implement and start doing in their business today?
Good question. You got dreams to pursue, not people to impress. That's all of that stuff. Like, why would you Why do you not change gears? Why do you not make the phone calls? Why do you not do the live events? Why will you, do 3 and then decide? Like, we've said this, right? Someone will do 3 live events and say, oh yeah, no, they don't work. Like, oh my gosh, right? Like, but trust me, you know what I mean? Like, there are few guarantees in this world, like death, taxes, and do 10 local live events as a business coach, and then just watch what happens, right? So, then the reason you won't do it is because you got people to impress. It's like the dream, hopefully, is, maybe you should have said this earlier, Road Dog, but like the dream, raise the consciousness of local business owners, right? Like, do that as your goal. You know what I mean? Like, again, tackle the game plan of, do you believe that marriages break up from money over lack of money over lack of love times 1,000,000? Well, then go do something about it. You know what I mean? And that's absolutely the case. Entrepreneurs get divorced at a ridiculous rate. Entrepreneurs get depression at a ridiculous rate. Entrepreneurs struggle with addiction at a ridiculous rate, alcohol and drugs. They get separated, they get divorced, and of course, suicide in the entrepreneurial world, significantly greater, go do something about it, right? So again, dreams to pursue, not people to impress. What stops you is ego. And that monopoly, right? You're halfway through and you feel like you're losing. You got to manage those emotions, So that's what I'm going to say, Shoots. What do you think? There you go.
Didn't realize we we're going to get all philosophical this morning. That was that's a new touch there, Shoots. I wasn't prepared for that. So there you go. All right, everybody. Clearly, I'm flustered from Karl's wisdom and insight there. But thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets with the king of the Caribbean himself, Dr. Karl Bryan, hashtag not a doctor. And if you're not on the inside, getting access to pre-show where you're getting Karl's daily emails, or just want more information on how to start and run and really optimize your coaching business, go to focused.com and subscribe today. And again, if you enjoyed the podcast, please share. And please also leave a review, as we know that all the streaming services leave, a ton of weight towards those reviews. So please, please, please leave a review. And that is it for another week. We will catch you on the next episode. And remember, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.